thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure in charge. This will lead to some chilly starts but dry with plenty of sunshine and lighter winds. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is the area of high pressure situated out towards the northeast. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, especially across eastern areas to give a bit of a chillier feel here. But otherwise through the rest of today, plenty of late evening sunshine and then staying dry and clear as we go through this evening and into the start of Monday morning. We do have some cloud though just across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, with the winds easing, temperatures will quickly fall away. Mist and fog patches for some of us and a touch of frost. Rural places may dip down to -3 or even -5 degrees to start Monday morning. So a chilly start out there for many of us. There will still be some cloud lingering across parts of Shetland, but for Scotland, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, any mist and fog patches will soon lift and clear. And that's a similar picture for the rest of England and Wales. Plenty of sunshine to start Monday. And that theme continues throughout the rest of Monday. Plenty of dry, fine and settled weather around. The winds also easing, so lighter winds, but still a little bit chilly across some eastern coasts. Otherwise, still staying cloudy across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, still feeling pleasant in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We could see highs of 16 or 17 degrees, but any windward coast still feeling a little bit chilly. And as we go through Monday evening and into Tuesday, well, not much changes. We hold on to the light winds. That will allow mist and fog to develop once again. But then as we go through the week, we hold on to high pressure, plenty of sunshine, perhaps a bit cloudier on Wednesday for some of us, and then temperatures rising. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Well, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 6th of April. This is The Weekend on GB News. Yes, senior Conservatives are calling for the release of a mother jailed for social media comments she made in the wake of the Southport murders, claiming she is the victim of politicised two-tier justice. Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer will admit this week that globalization has failed millions of voters. This as the fallout from President Trump's tariffs continues to reverberate around the world. And 2 Labour MPs have been denied entry and deported from Israel after being accused of plotting the documenting and activities of security forces and spreading anti-Israel hatred. And the BBC presenter Chris Packham, he's been accused of inciting personal attacks after plastering trains and the tube with wanted posters attacking big energy business bosses. Considering the murder of US healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in the States last year, does this go beyond bullying? And concerns that Russia could sabotage gas pipelines and cause mass blackouts in the UK. Now Brits are being urged to prepare a 72-hour survival kit. I want to know, what could you not live without? What would you have in your survival kit? I'm Emily Carver, and this is The Weekend. Well, yes, I'm standing in for Dawn Neeson this afternoon. She's off somewhere in the mountains, hiking and enjoying herself. She's always very activity conscious when she's on holiday, I find. But this show is nothing without you and your views. Please do get in touch. Please join along. Get your thoughts on all of our stories we're going to be discussing today. You can do that by visiting gbnews.com/your-say. Please do join the conversation this afternoon. But yes, keeping me company today are the political commentators Matthew Stadlin and Charlie Downs. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to get stuck into all of today's debates very soon indeed, but after the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Emily. Very good afternoon to you. Our top stories. Sir Keir Starmer has pledged to do everything necessary to protect the UK's national interest after the 10% tariff on British imports into the US came into force. It comes as Jaguar Land Rover announced it would pause shipments to the US in light of the new 25% tax on vehicles. Exports to the US account for almost a quarter of its 400,000 annual sales. Well, the Prime Minister says the government stands ready to use industrial policy to help shelter British business from the storm. GB News spoke to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Darren Jones, earlier about the Trump tariffs and the government's future plans.
We've been working on industrial strategy for a number of months now, and there'll be more details coming later in the year. But we've been very clear, and the Prime Minister will be clear this week, that we'll be working hand in glove with businesses to make the UK economy as strong and resilient as possible and to support those businesses in the face of difficult global trade winds as a consequence of tariffs from the United States and retaliatory tariffs from other countries around the world.
Well, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, says while she thinks Brexit was beneficial, the UK now needs to use it.
Many people want to just dynamically align with the EU. That's what Starmer wants to do, just copy what they're doing. That's lazy. And the fact is, it's the decisions that he's made that have put us in a worse position. We would be able to handle all of this turbulence better if they hadn't put up taxes, if they hadn't driven up inflation and driven down growth, which is now just 1%.
Meanwhile, one of Donald Trump's closest advisers says he hopes to see complete freedom of trade between the US and Europe in future. Elon Musk, who heads the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, says ideally Europe and the US would move towards a zero tariff situation, which would ultimately create a free trade zone with more freedom of movement between the continents. He was speaking at a congress in Florence of Italy's right-wing co-ruling League Party on Saturday. 2 Labour MPs have been denied entry to Israel and deported. Airlie and Woodley MP Yuan Yang and the Sheffield Central MP Incitement Mohammed flew from Luton to Israel yesterday. They've been accused of plotting to document the activities of security forces and spread anti-Israel hatred. That's according to a statement from the Israeli Immigration Ministry. The Foreign Secretary, David Lamy's, reacted by saying their treatment is unacceptable. Both Yang and Mohammed have now responded with a joint statement on X saying they're astounded by the decision and that it's vital parliamentarians are able to witness firsthand the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. The rate of employer national insurance contributions goes up to 15% today. Also, payments will now start when an employee earns £5,000 instead of the previous level of £9,100. Ministers have been warned prices could increase and staff working hours fall, as hospitality bosses say it will only have a negative impact on job creation. Some 80,000 patients across the country have faced shorter waits for life-changing cancer diagnoses as a result of the government's investment in cutting waiting times. The government's delivered a record £26 billion investment into the NHS, which it says hopes will get it back on its feet and make the service fit for the future. It's all part of Labour's plan for change. With the investment, they say, hope to put an end to industrial action, tackling waste and bringing in crucial reform to further transform the health service. Finally, Pope Francis has made his first public appearance since being discharged from hospital 2 weeks ago after treatment for double pneumonia. The 88-year-old entered St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in a wheelchair to greet the waiting crowds. Now, Pope Francis has been out of public life since the 23rd of March, when he gave a short greeting before leaving Rome's Gemelli Hospital. That followed more than 5 weeks of treatment for a very serious health crisis indeed. That's it for the moment. More from me around 1:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Well, it's 1:06. Welcome to the weekend. I'm Emily Carver. I'm standing in for Dawn Newsome this Sunday. Now, the big news that senior Conservatives, now including Suella Braverman and Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, of course, they've called for the release of a mother jailed for social media comments that she made in the wake of the Southport murders. They're now claiming she is the victim of a politicised two-tier justice system. Now, this has really blown up in the last few days, this case. The 42-year-old Lucy Connolly, she was handed a 31-month jail sentence for posting a comment in favour of mass deportations and setting fire to asylum hotels on social media. This was following the killing of 3 girls in Southport last summer. Now, she later pled guilty to inciting racial hatred, but many claim that her prison sentence is just too excessive. And there's been quite a lot of criticism with the decision to deny her early release on temporary licence, despite becoming eligible 5 months ago. This also comes as the Times newspaper reveals police make 30 arrests per day for offensive online messages. So joining me to discuss this is former MEP Stephen Wolfe. Stephen, interested to get your thoughts on this. This story is blowing up. Everyone seems to have an opinion. Very senior politicians are now getting involved. Do you think that sentence for this woman was far too harsh and that she should be released?
Well, look, as a barrister, I'm under the code of the membership of the Bar of England and Wales to support our judiciary. And I think after the analysis of all the facts in the case, that's what they would have done. But as an individual, do I believe that on the basis of the sentencing guidelines that are in existence, this was too high and too harsh? I do. And certainly, if I was her defence counsel, I would be seeking an opportunity to either have that reduced in the best way forward. Because, first of all, I was concerned about this issue of whether it was in the public interest. As a prosecutor, you have to analyse not only the facts of the case to the potential charges, but also to whether it's in the public interest for that particular tweet to have actually been subject to a case that goes before the magistrates. And secondly, I do wonder why she was indicated that she should plead guilty. I understand at that time, the idea was that they thought that she would get a lesser sentence. But as someone's hit the top end of the sentencing council for a Section 19 offence, I think that advice also seems to have been something that should have been reconsidered. So on the whole, I think she's been treated incredibly harshly, but that is the law. That is the way it's been analysed by judges. But I do think it's quite right now that for that particular instance of Lucy, her case, and many others, they should be reconsidered in the cold light of day without the emotions that were being held by those in power at the time.
Yes, because something that's been brought up and being called quite cruel is that she hasn't been allowed temporary leave to visit her daughter or her husband who's ill. And also, lots drawing the comparison between this case and, say, Mike Amesbury, the MP who punched his constituent and then was then given a suspended sentence. It does appear as though we seem to have all different types of rules and we don't seem to understand as a country why people are being sentenced for X amount of time versus another.
Well, I think this is the big problem now, and it's been raised by Robert Jenrick and other members of different political parties, that the way that the sentencing of magistrate hearings for those that are trials either way or those that are subject to going to prison does seem to be addressed differently depending on which political slant you have or what the views of the government are. And if that's the case, then that's not a country we want to be living in. In respect of Lucy's particular instance of the ability for her to be released on license, that is deeply surprising, particularly if you look at what the probation officer is alleged to have said. If it is true that she has been denied the access of an opportunity for leave based on a probation's decision that you have caused too much trouble, that once again is calling into a kind of situation where we need to review what's happening by probation officers and those in the prison system. What is very clear is that there doesn't seem to be any uniformity anymore across our sentencing, our judiciary, and also that's what's happening when you go into prisons. And this can't exist any longer because it will bring into disrepute our legal system, a legal system which I respect and think is brutally one of the best in the world.
Well, Stephen Wolfe, thank you very much indeed, former MP. Thank you for joining us on this sunny afternoon. Lovely backdrop in the garden there. Shall we see what my panel make of all this? Charlie Downs and Matthew Stadlin are both with me. Charlie, I'll start with you. Lots of calls for this woman to be released. Now, what she wrote was pretty dreadful. She took down the tweet within 24 hours, I understand. Do you think she's been dealt with too harshly?
I think it's easy for us to look at stories like this and say that it is an outrage and say that it's tyranny and call for her release. And, I mean, I do think that the handling of this case has been extremely excessive. I mean, as you say, the tweet that she made was in pretty poor taste. But there are those of us in the media who are, you know, the burning down of the hotels, that's quite a separate issue because that's an actual call for violence. But the calling for mass deportations, I mean, that's quite mainstream political rhetoric nowadays. I mean, we on a regular basis here, for instance, Rupert Lowe and Robert Jenrick talking about these things. You know, and myself on this channel, we have spoken about this subject before. And it seems that there is a certain shielding that people in the media get when it comes to talking about contentious political issues like this. And so I think that's one element of this. But the other more broad point that I think we should be talking about when it comes to stories like this is there is this notion that's held up as an ideal that is free speech, right? And perhaps rightfully so, because speech is, well, when we don't speak to each other, we kill each other, I think, is the general rule of human history. And I think that speech, the ability to communicate ideas and have debates in a peaceful way is necessary for a functioning society. But at the same time, in all societies, in all times and places throughout history, there has always been things that are unacceptable to say. And so the question is not whether you have censorship, if you want, but what is censored. And in our society, because we are governed by a regime that doesn't have the best interests of the country at heart, the constituency that is protected when it comes to the policing of speech tends to be, as is enshrined in law, essentially minorities and anybody who isn't an indigenous British person. And this case, I think, is another expression of that two-tier justice system that we have.
Matthew?
Well, I mean, it's just daft to suggest that this government doesn't have the best interests of this country at its heart. It's also not a regime. It's a democratically elected government. So just let's disabuse you of that.
The public-facing part of it is elected, but the rest of it isn't.
On the issues at stake, it's always tricky to comment on individual cases if you haven't actually been in court, you weren't there for the judgment, you weren't there for the sentencing. I'm coming to it. And also, I haven't seen the full probation notes. So I don't want to condemn the probation service without understanding fully the reasons behind any denials if she has been denied access to going to see her daughter. Of course, she should, in my view, be treated like any other prisoner in those circumstances. On the issue of the more generally of whether people should have been punished for social media posts, I'll take you back to August of last year, and there were children up and down the country from ethnic minorities, and not just ethnic minorities, but people from white British backgrounds, who were absolutely terrified as the country was going up in flames. People were really, really scared. I mean, I remember myself, I was up in Scotland doing lots of interviews. Ironically, actually...
I think the country going up in flames is hyperbolic,
well, not the whole
perhaps,
country,
Matthew.
not the whole country, but an asylum...
There were incidents of violence and...
An asylum
yes.
hotel was set fire to, the premises of an asylum hotel, and indeed an asylum hotel, burning of asylum hotels was in this tweet or in this post. I was in Scotland, ironically, partly because I was interviewing Liz Truss, and my family were back in London. And I'm a white British person, and it felt a very, very uncomfortable time. So this was a dark moment in our history, one of the darkest moments I can remember in my 45 years. An asylum hotel with human beings inside it was the subject of a lynch mob. And let me just say this.
What's your point with reference to this?
My point is that words matter. And free speech, as everyone in this country knows, has its limitations. It's not entirely free. I cannot incite someone over there to go and murder someone. Otherwise, even if I haven't lifted my finger physically, I will go to prison, and rightly so.
But surely real violence must be considered worse in our justice system than the threat of violence.
One would hope, but real violence is a lot more difficult and costly to police, and it's a lot more... well, it's
I think that's the point.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to police people for social media posts, because really it doesn't require the police to actually do any investigation. They just see the post, and then they send, for example, 6 police officers to the person's house.
And this Times headline today, police make 30 arrests a day for offensive online messages. Thousands of people are being detained and questioned for sending messages that cause annoyance, inconvenience or anxiety to others via the internet, telephone or mail. I really do wonder when the Met Police is having to make huge amounts of cuts, that's just the Met Police I'm talking about, but of course other police services will be having to do the same, whether we just have to accept that people are going to write nasty things. Now, obviously, Lucy Connolly's was quite an extreme case, but this is
When you say quite, what do you mean quite extreme?
Well, because she was advocating for violence.
It wasn't quite, was it?
No, but I'm talking about
a febrile,
hang on, Matthew. I am talking about this, 30 arrests a day for offensive online messages, annoyance, inconvenience or anxiety.
I live in London, and my sense of, and maybe it's because I'm a relatively young father, or a father to young children, my sense is that crime is on the rise in the capital, and I want the police to absolutely crack down on drug dealers, on speed, on people who speed, on the delivery motorbikes that treat the roads with contempt, and with any violence whatsoever. It's not an either-or. If someone is inciting...
Well, I'm sorry, but there are limited resources.
Yeah, well, I'm very pleased.
I think it is
I'm very pleased that
or.
people who incite riots on social media, incite the burning down of hotels with human beings in it, go to prison.
OK, 31 months, not allowed to see her family. That's OK.
I didn't say that was OK, did I? I said that she should be treated like other prisoners, and if she has, as it were, a de facto right under the law to see her family, she should be able to see her family.
Right, well, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and more that you haven't got just now, you can go to the website gbnews.com. But in other news, Sir Keir Starmer will admit that globalization has failed millions of voters, apparently. This as the fallout from President Trump's tariffs continues to reverberate around the world. Yes, in what will be the Prime Minister's first major intervention since America's imposition of tariffs, Sir Keir is set to say that the seismic global economic effects of the tariffs prove the government must move further and faster to boost growth with supply-side reforms. Well, earlier on, Camilla Tominey spoke to Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch about all this, and she blames Sir Keir Starmer for the impact that these tariffs will have on the UK.
Many people want to just dynamically align with the EU. That's what Starmer wants to do, just copy what they're doing. That's lazy. And the fact is, it's the decisions that he's made that have put us in a worse position. We would be able to handle all of this turbulence better if they hadn't put up taxes, if they hadn't driven up inflation and driven down growth, which is now just 1%.
Well, this is interesting because we were debating throughout the week whether domestic policy is more important to what's going on in the economy, or whether the tariffs will have more of a harder hit than, for example, the national insurance increase. Let's see what my panel make of this, because, Charlie, I mean, there's a huge amount that's uncertain. None of us can say for sure what the impact of these tariffs are going to be on our economy. But what we do have a good idea of is what the impact of, say, the national insurance hikes are going to be. We've already seen companies say that they're reducing the number of people they're going to be taking on. We've seen that people are having to be let go. Essentially, it's becoming more expensive to run a business in this country. I mean, what do you make of Keir Starmer's comments that apparently he's going to be making tomorrow, that globalisation is dead? That's quite an assertion.
It is, especially from the neo-Blairite Labour Party, who in my childhood was saying that globalisation was inevitable and that we have to get on board or get left behind. Now they're saying that globalisation is over. It's very interesting, and I do wonder what the strategy, the larger strategy at play, is here. I wonder whether it's something like, because I'm in a way loath to praise the man, but to give credit where it's due, Keir Starmer has proven himself to be quite a skilled diplomat, I would say, especially when it came to kind of managing the Ukraine situation as relations broke down between the United States and the Ukrainian leadership. And now I think he's seeking to do a similar kind of thing, where he's straddling his relationships with European countries and also the relationship with the US, because obviously we've got the lower tax rate of 10% as against the Europeans' 20%. And I think that might see us become a kind of almost like a a hub, I guess, for when European countries want to, for example, manufacture something. They may well send the materials to our country, because if something is manufactured in the UK, it's subject to that 10% tariff rather than the European 20%. So I think he's probably trying to appease the Trump regime by saying that globalisation is over, because that's exactly the mission of the Trump administration, I would say. But at the same time, I think that he's probably going to be saying other things that the Europeans are going to like, because no doubt they won't like to hear that globalisation is over, because the entire project of the European Union is based on the idea of this kind of universalist liberalism that globalisation is underpinned by. But I think it's a good thing. Although, with that being said, I read an article penned by Starmer in The Telegraph, interestingly enough, which again I think is an interesting detail here, suggests that he's sort of strafing to the right in a way. But it contained no talk of ending mass immigration, ending net zero, all of these other policies that we associate with globalisation. So whether this is actually going to mean anything real, anything tangible, I think remains to be seen.
Yeah, what's quite interesting, Matthew, is that he's talking quite in free market terms, really, saying we could bring in emergency reforms to cut red tape around regulations, targeted tax breaks to help out struggling sectors as a result of these tariffs, and then, more broadly, supply-side reforms. What do you think he means when he says globalisation is over?
Why it's controversial or interesting that Keir Starmer is talking in terms of free markets.
Oh, because previously he's been pro-nationalisation of major industries, which doesn't tend to be a free market approach to economics, does it?
We're talking about international trade, I thought.
Well, we're talking about him making supply-side reforms in this country to counter the tariffs that Donald Trump is putting on us.
I just think it's important not to confuse
I'm
what's
not
happening
confused
domestically and what's happening internationally.
But on the issue of globalisation... you clearly haven't read what he said.
I've read the article in the Sunday Telegraph,
Well, you clearly haven't, because
let me respond
you're just trying to make a clever point when actually I understand exactly what he's trying to do.
No, I'm just challenging your assertions and your assumptions.
That's someone who has been pro-nationalisation. It's now worthy of comment that he would now talk about free market reforms.
That is true, but less interesting in the context of international trade and free markets, which is what I was responding to. I don't think it's surprising that Keir Starmer is in favour of free markets internationally. On the question of globalisation...
He was talking about free market reforms in this country to counter those tariffs.
On the question of globalisation, I think he's gone too far to say it's dead. I don't think globalisation is dead. But it is absolutely a crisis. We don't know how the markets are going to continue to respond. The markets are only one barometer of this, but they're an important barometer. You find very few people around the world, whether it's in Europe or Japan or China or elsewhere, who think that what Trump has done is a good thing. In fact, I suspect I know a lot of Americans aren't happy with it either.
Well, they're out protesting,
the question is how we drive things forward. You were suggesting that it would be helpful if the EU starts dumping stuff on us. There could be negative consequences of that as well, because British manufacturing might suffer. I'm a massive champion of British manufacturing. I would like us to do a hell of a lot more. I actually work with Made in Britain in order to support and champion what we do. If there is an opportunity for us to become more self-reliant, to make more stuff ourselves, fantastic, and we should embrace that, and Starmer should supercharge that. But to say globalisation is dead, I think that's political posturing.
Charlie was saying, it would be great if a French company decided to make their parts in this country instead of the European Union because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
but we have to move on. But we'll come back, I'm sure. You're with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. Do get in touch with your views as well on both of those issues. We're also going to be talking about the 2 Labour MPs who've been denied entry and deported from Israel after being accused of plotting, documenting the activities of security forces and spreading anti-Israel hatred. Yes, this is developing into quite the story. David Lammy, very angry indeed, the Foreign Secretary. Kemi Badenoch takes a rather different view. We'll reveal what she had to say after this short break.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
What is a non-traditional relationship coach?
Basically, anything that doesn't fit societal norms. So if you are anything that is other than heterosexual, or if you have multiple partners.
And is there growing demand for that kind of service? And if so, why?
Very much so. People are starting to realise that we've been kind of indoctrinated from birth to be monogamous and follow societal norms within relationships, myself included, I hasten to add. It was about 6 years ago I discovered that I was polyamorous through a lot of friends that are poly. And it just developed from there, basically. And there's not many relationship coaches that are able to deal with non-traditional relationships. We are very much trained to be traditional relationship coaches.
Yeah.
So I'm an out-of-the-box thinker on that one.
Nadia, surely it's just been a bit greedy, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think monogamy can be beautiful and wonderful. And for most people, myself included, that's the type of relationship that fulfills me. I would not be interested in an open relationship. I think you're right. We're not naturally monogamous as a species. If we were, we would mate for life and it wouldn't even be an issue. But the fact that we're not means that we're not monogamous by nature. So monogamy is a choice. And I think in a relationship, that's one of the most exciting and special choices that you can make. You wake up every day, you carry on with your day, and you choose to only be with one person. I think that is so unbelievably special and would make me feel a lot more fulfilled than having multiple partners.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the weekend with me, Emily Carver. I'm standing in for Dawn Neeson this Sunday. It's now 1:27. Now, 2 Labour MPs have been denied entry and deported from Israel after they were accused of plotting to document the activities of security forces and also spread anti-Israel hatred. Now, it's Early and Woodley MP Juan Yang and the Sheffield Central MP Abtesam Mohammed, who flew from Luton Airport to Israel. Now, in a joint statement today, the 2 women said they were astounded at the unprecedented step taken by the Israeli authorities. The Israeli embassy in the UK has claimed the pair were denied entry to Israel after accusing Israel of false claims, calling for a boycott, spreading lies and actively promoting sanctions against Israeli ministers while supporting campaigns aimed at boycotting the state of Israel. So joining me now is the chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mond. Gary, this seems to be turning into a bit of a diplomatic row, but also a domestic row. Where do you stand on this?
I think Israel is 100% right
to ban these two individual Labour MPs from entering the country. Israel's currently fighting a war on multiple fronts, and it is wholly understandable to stop those who wish to enter the country with a view to spreading anti-Israel hatred and seeking to undermine the efforts of Israel to win the totally just war that it's fighting at present. And I'd also remind you that other countries would do exactly the same. You might remember that Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary back in 2013, banned two American anti-Islam activists, Pamela Geller and Robert Spenter, from entering the UK for a much more minor reason of being uncertain as to what they would say when they came here. So if Britain can do that, so can Israel, and so should Israel.
Are you concerned at all by the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, his outrage over this?
Not at all.
He's saying the government will continue to stand up for the rights of our MPs to speak their mind, whatever their party, suggesting that this is a freedom of speech issue, Gary.
What they do in the UK, in Parliament and elsewhere, is their business. It's not a business for Israel at that point. But when they seek to go to Israel to seek to undermine the Israeli government and the state of Israel as a whole, that becomes a different matter. The two matters are not connected.
OK, well, I'll bring in Matthew Stadler.
I, by the way, also support freedom of speech strongly.
OK, well, Matthew Stadler, what do you make of this? Whose side are you on? Because it seems that people are picking sides.
I understand why Israel have done it. They're at war and they have national security interests at stake, and they also are doing terrible things in Gaza and in the West Bank, so they're not going to want to be scrutinised. I also would say, of course, they have the right to do what they've done. Just as Gary said, we have the right to bar certain people from coming, or anyone we want, actually, to come into this country, ultimately. I don't think it sets a very good precedent. Israel is, of course, an ally, and we still supply them with parts to their weapons, apart from anything else. So the idea that they're denying entry to two democratically elected MPs from an allied nation, Britain, and MPs, by the way, also from the governing party, I think is a very worrying precedent.
Yeah, I mean, it may well be that our government allies itself with Israel, but these two MPs don't seem to, Charlie.
Well, there is,
Does that matter? Should that matter?
I think it does matter, because you need a unified ruling class in order to have, you know, peace and prosperity at home. And there is obviously a contingent of the Labour Party who are very strongly anti-Israel, let's just say. I mean, these two MPs have both accused Israel of war crimes, and I'm not making any comment on the veracity of their claims. I'm just saying this is the situation as it stands. And I agree with much of what Matthew said. I think that it is actually the sign of a self-respecting nation to not let people like that into your country, because, you know, in Britain, I don't think we have anything approaching that kind of backbone or, you know, kind of self-respect.
Yes, we've had Islamist clerics come over and deliver speeches in mosques and at universities.
That's exactly what I mean. Interpreted what I said. I haven't supported what they do. I've said I understand why they've done it. Israel is in the grip of a far-right government which is doing appalling things in the West Bank and in Gaza. They have the right to do it. It doesn't mean that they should have done it.
Yeah. Is there an argument that we wish newly elected MPs would perhaps focus their efforts on constituency matters?
Certainly, very definitely. Many people in this country feel that not enough effort is being made to support ordinary citizens of Britain, and the members of Parliament have a major responsibility, whatever political party they come from. They have a major responsibility, a fundamental responsibility, to work for their constituents, and that is not happening.
I mean, we've had MPs lobbying for an airport in Pakistan, haven't we?
Well, exactly. And on the point of loyalty, because that's really what we're talking about here. These are two MPs of a supposed ally who are not supporting the cause of this ally. Both of these MPs, or rather neither of these MPs, were born in the United Kingdom, right? One was born in Yemen and the other was born in China, and these are not exactly geopolitical allies of the United Kingdom. So I think there has to be a broader conversation here as well about actually whether...
But should that matter if they've been integrated into society and made their way through the
we have seen,
political system and the education system and everything else?
Well, throughout my life, there has been this narrative of integration, but I have yet to see any meaningful, wide-scale integration take place.
You're pro-free speech and you don't want British people to be able to be elected to Parliament.
I'm sorry?
I'll repeat it more slowly. You are pro-free speech. You are pro-free speech, but you don't think that British people should be allowed to be voted into our Parliament.
Well, it depends on our definition of British, doesn't it, Matthew?
No. Yeah, well, they're British. They've got a British passport.
In what sense? So they have a piece of paper that says they're British.
No, they've got a passport, Charles.
With regard to the fundamental debate at hand, I don't think it matters where someone's born. There's many political activists all over the world who take a far left-wing view, who are totally anti the state of Israel, who would like to see it cease to exist. And where someone is born is not necessarily correlated. In fact, it is not correlated to where they were born.
Right. Well, Gary, we're going going to have to leave it there. Gary Mon, thank you very much indeed. You're the chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, and of course Matthew Stadlin and Charlie Downs are still with me. Right, well, Huan Yang and Activism Mohammed did issue the following joint statement in response to this story. It's vital that parliamentarians are able to witness firsthand the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. We are 2 out of scores of MPs who have spoken out in Parliament in recent months on the Israel-Palestine conflict and the importance of complying with international humanitarian law. Parliamentarians should feel free to speak truthfully in the House of Commons without fear of being targeted. OK, they've released a longer statement. There's a little snippet. You're with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. Do get in touch with your views. We'll be reading out some very shortly indeed. But first, it's the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon to you. Our headlines: the Prime Minister says the era of globalisation as we know it has come to an end as the fallout from President Trump's tariffs continues. Sir Keir will on Monday admit globalisation's failed millions of voters when he makes his first major intervention since the US imposed sweeping taxes. And he will argue the government must move further and faster to boost domestic growth. The Prime Minister insists when it comes to tariffs, the immediate priority is to keep calm and fight for the best deal, because he says nobody wins from a trade war. The Prime Minister is expected to announce a series of pro-growth measures later this week. His words have been mirrored by the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones.
We've been working on industrial strategy for a number of months now, and there'll be more details coming later in the year. But we've been very clear, and the Prime Minister will be clear this week, that we'll be working hand in glove with businesses to make the UK economy as strong and resilient as possible, and to support those businesses in the face of difficult global trade winds as a consequence of tariffs from the United States and retaliatory tariffs from other countries around the world.
2 Labour MPs have been denied entry to Israel and deported. The Early and Woodley MP, Huan Yang, and the Sheffield Central MP, Activism Mohammed, flew from Luton to Israel yesterday. They've been accused by Israeli authorities of plotting to document the activities of security forces and spread anti-Israel hatred. That is according to a statement from the Israeli Immigration Ministry. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says it's unacceptable. Both Yang and Mohammed have responded with a joint statement saying they're astounded by the decision, and it's vital parliamentarians are able to witness firsthand the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories. A teenager who died after getting into difficulty in a lake in southeast London has been named as Isaiah Smith. Officers and paramedics were called to Beckenham Place Park in Lewisham shortly after 3 p.m. on Friday. They stopped the search on Friday night when a body was found. The search involved specialist diving teams, ambulance crews and firefighters. And Pope Francis has made his first public appearance since being discharged from hospital 2 weeks ago after treatment for double pneumonia. The 88-year-old pontiff entered St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in a wheelchair to greet waiting crowds. He'd been out of public view since the 23rd of March when he gave a short greeting when he was leaving the Gemelli Hospital in Rome. That followed more than 5 weeks of treatment in the most serious health crisis of his 12-year tenure. Well, those are the headlines. I'll be back with more at 2.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Aaron. Now, do remember, you can let me know all of your thoughts on all of the stories we're going to be discussing today, and have done so already. Visit gbnews.com/yoursay. Join the conversation. Let me know what you make of everything, what you make of these 2 Labour MPs being booted out of Israel. Do you support Israel's decision to do so, or do you think it's a bit unfair, considering their status in this country and our status as an ally? In other news, though, the BBC presenter Chris Packham, he's been accused of inciting personal attacks after plastering trains with wanted posters attacking individual big energy business bosses. Now, some have pointed out that considering the murder of the US healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in the United States last year, does this all go beyond bullying, and could it border on dangerous? All of that more to come. I'm Emily Carver and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, welcome back to the weekend with me, Emily Carver. Now, lots of you have been getting in touch about what we were just discussing. These 2 Labour MPs who've been dramatically detained and deported from Israel, where they weren't really allowed out of the airport, I don't think. Sam's got in touch. He says, what has what's going on in a foreign country got to do with UK MPs? They should stick to domestic politics. They were elected to look after the interests of their own local constituents. Travelling to a foreign country to take a political stance against the government of that country is way beyond their job description or pay grade. Well, we've put it like that, Sam. Quite convincing. Ian says, what have Israel got to hide? That's the question we should be asking. But Mardi says they don't have anything to hide. They just don't want idiots who are 100% against Israel telling their enemies where to target. And Joan just gets in touch saying these 2 women Labour members are troublemakers and Israel has every right to chuck them out. So there you go. Some difference of opinion on that one. But we're going to move on because the broadcaster Chris Packham, who freelance broadcaster for the BBC as well. He's been accused of inciting personal attacks after he chose to plaster trains in London with wanted posters of fossil fuel CEOs, accusing them of murdering life on Earth. So not only did he not have permission to put them up, but his stunt has been described as irresponsible following the murder of US healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York last December. Let's bring in my panel on this one. I don't know if we can run the images of him putting up these posters very proudly again. But I'll come to you on this first, Matthew. This is quite extreme behaviour.
Yes.
Singling out individual bosses of companies that you don't approve of, plastering them across TfL, Transport for London network, and then broadcasting it on your social media channels. It's the sort of thing an angry, immature student would do, isn't it?
It's just that it's out of order, and I think it's worse than if a so-called immature, angry student did it, because this man has influence. He's on the BBC, and he has a massive following, and putting up wanted posters about individuals. Imagine, heaven forbid, anything were ever to happen to one of these individuals. Chris Packham would surely be searching his conscience at that point. So it's not acceptable. I've interviewed Chris before and found him gentle and a very nice chap to interview. I think he's done lots of impressive work in highlighting the climate crisis. I've been hosting events this week on the climate crisis. As the father of 2 very young children, I am extremely concerned about it and our failure as a species, as human beings, to deal with it adequately. But the way to deal with it is not to put wanted posters on the tube, which, by the way, presumably is unlawful anyway.
Well, yes, Transport for London have said that they're removing any because he didn't have permission. Charlie, but is this, you know, an issue of freedom of speech? We've been talking about that quite a lot on the show already. You know, should he be allowed to do this?
Well, I was going to say, it's a very free speech-centric show, this, isn't it? And this is a prime example of a case where, obviously, this is not acceptable speech. And this is actually a case where I think that it's totally reasonable for the state or the law to get involved. I mean, we were talking earlier about the fact that I made the point that all societies in all times and places always have speech that they deem to be unacceptable.
Yes.
But historically, I would say that the enforcement mechanism for those, you know, sort of the propriety of speech has not been legal but social. There has been a sense that, you know, you don't say something, not because you'll go to prison if you say it, but because your neighbours will shun you if you say it. And I think that's outside of incidents like this, where he is obviously endangering or inciting violence against individual specific people and, you know, putting their face and name, no less, on the posters for hundreds of people
But he
to
doesn't
see.
explicitly advocate any kind of
No, he says
violence, but he says
metaphorical.
that they are murdering life on Earth, which is a very extreme thing to say, which would elicit a strong response from followers of him.
Just to provide a tiny bit of balance, he would presumably say this is metaphorical.
Yes.
But in my view, it goes beyond that.
Well, I don't think he'd say that. I think he'd stand by his comments that these people, in his view, are murdering life on Earth. I mean, a lot of climate activists talk about ecocide. They talk about, you know, the genocide of our world,
yes,
our globe.
he would.
So I think he'd stand by that, and I think he'd say, you know, I'm not advocating violence against these people, of course.
Yes.
But, I mean, if you're saying someone's murdering, then surely that would elicit a very strong, even violent response.
Well,
I don't
one
know.
would think, and I think another element of this is actually the cause that he is choosing to represent in this, you know, what he would probably call protest or you know, activism or whatever. The cause is obviously, you know, I guess broadly speaking, buys into the climate narrative, pro-net zero, pro-deindustrialisation, all that sort of thing in the name of the climate. That is a state-approved narrative, right? And it's something that the government in this country and across the West.
So he's not that rebellious, is what you're saying,
well, no,
Charlie.
he's acting.
I'm going to have to leave it there. I'm really sorry. Got to get to the response from the BBC. They say Chris Packham is a freelancer, not a member of staff. His private activities and views are his own, not the BBC's. If you're in search of some spring sunshine, though, here is the forecast for some of those destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there. It's much drier across Spain and Portugal as we head into the new working week. There'll be plenty of sunny spells across much of the Med, but the risk of some showers at times too. Madeire's seeing some showers, but plenty of sunny spells too. Much of the dry weather across Spain and Portugal, though 1 or 2 showers are possible. Showers become more frequent from Italy, stretching across to Greece and Turkey. Temperatures a little on the disappointing side for the time of year, and it remains so for the next few days too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we've got high pressure in charge. We'll see some chilly starts, but plenty of sunshine on the way with much lighter winds too. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is that area of high pressure. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, so chilly still on that eastern coast. But through the rest of today, well, many of us are going to see a fine and settled afternoon, plenty of spring sunshine out there. There will be a bit of cloud across the far southwest of England and across Shetland, but elsewhere dry with plenty of sunshine. Feeling pleasant in that sunshine as well. Temperatures not as high as Saturday, but in the northeast of Scotland and northern England. More in the way of sunshine here, so hopefully feeling a little bit more pleasant. Now, as we go through the rest of this evening, well, not much changes. We hold on to a lot of sunshine as we end the day. Plenty of fine and dry weather around, and temperatures still around 13 or 14 degrees across western Scotland by the time we reach this evening, but still holding on to cloud across Shetland through the rest of this evening. And then not much changes as we go Sunday night into Monday morning. Plenty of clear skies on offer, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall. We'll see the winds easing as well, so we'll see some mist and fog patches developing as we go overnight, most likely across parts of Northern Ireland, and temperatures quickly falling away. We could see lows down to -3, possibly even -5 in places, especially across northern areas. But this leads to a fine and a pleasant start to Monday. Any mist and fog patches soon lifting, and then more in the way of sunshine. We still hold on to some cloud across parts of Shetland, but otherwise lighter winds out there, still feeling pleasant, especially for the time of year. Highs of up to 17 degrees. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back to the weekend with me, Emily Carver. Now, this is an interesting one, slightly concerning. Yes, there's a lot of concerns about Russia, whether they could sabotage gas pipelines and potentially cause mass blackouts in the United Kingdom. So Brits are being urged to prepare a 72-hour survival kit. I'm not quite sure why 72 hours, but perhaps we can dig into that. But yes, amongst the items recommended are water, non-perishable food, a torch, identity documents and a Swiss Army knife. But what would you put in your survival kit? OK, so we haven't got long to talk about this. But Charlie, are you worried about Russia's activities, not at least when it comes to our, well, basic infrastructure, fundamental infrastructure? And what would be in your survival kit?
Well, on the first point, I am concerned that there is a great deal of fragility in Britain's infrastructure. We saw this recently with the fire that took out Heathrow Airport for a number of days. I mean, it's not exactly promising. And I think, again, to bring up net zero, that particular policy doctrine has led us to be hugely more vulnerable to acts of aggression from a state like Russia. Now, whether Russia is actually going to aggress on UK soil, I think is at this stage, very unlikely. And I think that people who are pushing that kind of narrative are seeking to whip up fear and panic. And stories like this one, I think, are intended to do exactly that. Now, in terms of what I would have in my 72-hour, my 72-hour sort of go bag, oh my goodness, I don't know. I mean, what do I need? Something that's full of protein, maybe some beef jerky or something like that. Something that's going to sort of stir. I'm a fan of sparkling water, so I'd have a bit of that in there. Maybe my Bible as well.
Sparkling water and a Bible.
That's my most middle-class opinion, is the sparkling water.
One of my producers said antidepressants, and perhaps you would need some happy pills.
It's by no means beyond the realms of possibility that Russia would attack us on our land. I mean, look at the Skripals. They've already done it, right? For a start, it was not beyond the realms of possibility that they were behind, although we don't have the evidence for it, that we would ask the question whether they were behind the taking out of Heathrow for a day. They are our deadly enemies, and it is the responsibility of this Labour government to beef up, to use your word beef in a different context, beef up our defences. And it's not necessarily going to, of course, be a conventional war where they fire over missiles or invade us with men from boats.
It would certainly be an escalation if they went after.
It's an attack attack on our infrastructure, whether that's technology or whether it's hardware, and we should be alert to that. And I don't know who these security sources are that suggest that we should be getting these safety packs together. So I'm not sure I should dignify it with a response. But if I were to be forced to,
though, right,
I'll have a torch, as suggested. I have some candles.
OK, candles.
If our water supply is vulnerable, so we don't get water out of the tap, some matches and some water.
Water, yep.
Yeah, and I'll agree with Charlie on this. I have a bit of protein, I think.
A bit of protein. OK, Matthew Stanley, Charlie Downs, thank you very much indeed. That's the end of the first hour of the weekend with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show, so don't go anywhere. But let's have a little look at the weather forecast with Catherine.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure in charge. This will lead to some chilly starts but dry with plenty of sunshine and lighter winds. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is the area of high pressure situated out towards the northeast. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, especially across eastern areas, to give a bit of a chillier feel here. But otherwise, through the rest of today, plenty of late evening sunshine and then staying dry and clear as we go through this evening and into the start of Monday morning. We do have some cloud though just across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, with the winds easing, temperatures will quickly fall away. Mist and fog patches for some of us and a touch of frost. Rural places may dip down to -3 or even -5 degrees to start Monday morning. So a chilly start out there for many of us. There will still be some cloud lingering across parts of Shetland, but for Scotland, plenty of sunshine to start Monday morning. Likewise for Northern Ireland, any mist and fog patches will soon lift and clear. And that's a similar picture for the rest of England and Wales. Plenty of sunshine to start Monday. And that theme continues throughout the rest of Monday. Plenty of dry, fine and settled weather around. The winds also easing, so lighter winds, but still a little bit chilly across some eastern coasts. Otherwise, still staying cloudy across parts of Shetland, but for many of us, still feeling pleasant in that sunshine, especially out towards the west. We could see highs of 16 or 17 degrees, but any windward coast still feeling a little bit chilly. And as we go through Monday evening and into Tuesday, well, not much changes. We hold on to the light winds. That will allow mist and fog to develop once again. But then as we go through the week, we hold on to high pressure, plenty of sunshine, perhaps a bit cloudier on Wednesday for some of us, and then temperatures rising. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Well, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 6th of April. I almost said good afternoon, Britain. This is the weekend on GB News, yes. Sir Keir Starmer, he's vowed to help shelter British businesses from the storm of US tariffs as he lays the ground for state interventions to shore up the worst affected industries. All of this, though, on the same day that the cost of having staff is going up as the increase in employers' national insurance kicks in tomorrow. In France, supporters of Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party are staging nationwide demonstrations today after she was convicted of embezzling EU funds and barred from running in the 2027 presidential election, where she was hoping to unseat President Emmanuel Macron. Here we go. Here are live pictures from France. There's currently also a counter-protest here to the pro-Le Pen protest happening in Paris. It's all kicking off. We're going to keep our eye on both for you and head over there to see what's happening. But in other news, closer to home, the BBC has been accused of parroting Islamist propaganda after describing people who convert to Islam as reverts. When will the national broadcaster learn its lesson, some are asking. Elsewhere, immigration specialists have demanded an urgent review of skilled worker visas granted by the Home Office after GB News found evidence of successful applications which failed to meet basic criteria. What's going on there? And lastly, a British mum who landed a £148 million Euro Millions jackpot, says that winning the money has ruined her love life. Oh, I'm asking, would winning the lotto ruin your marriage? I'm Emily Carver, and this is The Weekend. Right, well, as ever, please do get in touch with your views. Let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're going to be discussing today. Yes, how would you spend £148 million? Apparently it could break up a marriage, but you'd be very rich indeed. gbnews.com/your say. Do get in touch and join the conversation. And of course, keeping me company today is the political commentator Matthew Stadlen and Charlie Downs as well. Thank you very much for joining us this sunny afternoon. But before we get stuck into all of today's stories, here's the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Emily. Good afternoon to you. Our headlines. Sir Keir Starmer says the world as we knew it has gone as countries around the world consider how to respond to Donald Trump's tariffs. The Prime Minister has promised British business the government is ready to step in to protect the economy and shelter them from the storm. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, Sir Keir has pledged to do everything necessary to protect the UK's national interest after a 10% baseline tariff on most imports into America took effect yesterday, and many countries will be facing higher taxes on the 9th of April. The Prime Minister also made reference to car manufacturers of the West Midlands after Jaguar Land Rover said it was pausing its shipments to the US. Now, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, has described the UK's lower tariff levy as a Brexit dividend and says the government is ready to support British business.
We've been working on industrial strategy for a number of months now, and there'll be more details coming later in the year. But we've been very clear, and the Prime Minister will be clear this week, that we'll be working hand in glove with businesses to make the UK economy as strong and resilient as possible, and to support those businesses in the face of difficult global trade winds as a consequence of tariffs from the United States and retaliatory tariffs from other countries around the world.
Meanwhile, a Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, says while she thinks Brexit was beneficial, the UK now needs to take advantage of it.
Many people want to just dynamically align with the EU. That's what Starmer wants to do, just copy what they're doing. That's lazy. And the fact is, it's the decisions that he's made that have put us in a worse position. We would be able to handle all of this turbulence better if they hadn't put up taxes, if they hadn't driven up inflation and driven down growth, which is now just 1%.
Well, Ms Badenoch has also said she's not surprised two Labour MPs were denied entry to Israel. The Earley and Woodley MP, Yuan Yang, and Abtism Mohammed, who represents Sheffield Central, flew from Luton to Israel yesterday. They were deported after being accused of planning to spread anti-Israel hatred and suspected of documenting the activities of the security forces. The pair say they are astounded by their treatment. Well, Ms Badenoch has said every country should be able to control its borders. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has criticised her words and has said Israel's decision is unacceptable. Now, you heard a moment ago that supporters of Marine Le Pen's national rally, the far-right party, are staging nationwide demonstrations today. It all comes after her conviction for embezzling EU funds and, more importantly, her being barred from running in the 2027 presidential election, which she was tipped to win. She was hoping to unseat Emmanuel Macron, the president. So Le Pen supporters arriving in Paris. However, a rival left-wing demonstration has also been assembling. This is at Place de la République, also in Paris. Now, the movement has denounced what organisers called a Trumpist turn by Le Pen's National Rally Party. The centrist party in France, Renaissance, is also taking action. I'll try and bring you updated pictures, live pictures, as we go through the day. A teenager who died after getting into difficulty in a lake in southeast London has been named as Isaiah Smith. Officers and paramedics were called to Beckenham Place Park in Lewisham shortly after 3 p.m. on Friday. Scotland Yard said the search for the 15-year-old was stopped on Friday night after Isaiah was found. Specialist diving teams, ambulance crews and firefighters were all deployed for the search. And Pope Francis has made his first public appearance since being discharged from hospital 2 weeks ago after receiving treatment for double pneumonia. And the 88-year-old pontiff entered St Peter's Square a little earlier on a wheelchair as the waiting crowds there at the Vatican greeted him. His last appearance in public was that brief appearance at the window of the Gemelli Hospital in Rome on the 23rd of March when he gave a short greeting to well-wishers. That followed more than 5 weeks in hospital for a number of conditions, including double pneumonia, the most serious health crisis of his 12-year papacy. There's your headlines. I'll be back with an update at 2:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to GB News, the weekend. It's 2:07 and supporters of Marine Le Pen's national rally and Marine Le Pen herself are staging nationwide demonstrations today after she was convicted of embezzling EU funds and barred from running in the 2027 presidential election, where she was hoping to unseat President Emmanuel Macron. These are live pictures that you're looking at now from the centre of Paris. There a huge turnout in support of Marine Le Pen, but also there is a counter-protest going on at the same time, very much not in support of the party and their leader, the former French presidential hopeful. She continues to maintain her innocence. She claims that her conviction was politically motivated after recent opinion polls made her the favourite to win the 2027 presidential election. But we're going to go back to the pro-Le Pen rally, because joining me now is the leader of Generation Frexit, Charles-Henri Gallois. Charles, thank you very much indeed. You're there in the heart of Paris. Why have you chosen to be there?
because I mean, it's a disgrace what's happening to Marine. You know, totally a political motivated, let's say, sentence. If you look at it, it's crazy what they have done. They say that it's a disgrace because she's against the EU, so it's all the more difficult, you know, judge doing political sentence. If you look at the polls, she is the first opposition.
Charles, your line is breaking up a little, but if you could just show me what's behind you with your camera so we can have a little look, because your audio is not very good. So there you are amongst lots of protesters who are all there in support of Marine Le Pen in the heart of Paris. I don't know, can you see the counter-protests?
No, because it's like at 2 kilometers. It's on the other side of Paris, so you cannot see it.
OK, well, Charles, we're going to have to leave it there just because the line's a bit rubbish. It's probably because there's so many people there using the 4G, the 5G. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Charles-Henri Gallois there, the leader of Generation Frexit. I think what he was saying there was that he believes that this conviction is politically motivated because Marine Le Pen was doing so well in the polls. But it's a serious conviction against her. A 2 years suspended sentence, and then 2 years she'll spend with an electronic tag. That was her sentence given, but she's unlikely, therefore, to spend any time in prison. Also, a €100,000 fine has been handed out. Let's bring in my panel on this. It's very interesting to see what's going on in France, isn't it, Charlie? Divided country, like most Western nations.
Yes, well, I have a huge amount of respect for the French right. They are a very, very vibrant scene, and they've got some great authors and some great politicians like Le Pen, but also like Jordan Bardella, who is the president of the National Rally. And I think that one possible outcome of Le Pen's conviction, which I also believe to be politically motivated, absolutely, because she represents, and the party represents, a genuine threat to the kind of globalist liberal order that's governed France and the European Union more generally for many decades. But I think that it's possible that Bardella actually takes Le Pen's place now, because if they can't, if their leader can't run to be the president, then why? What change do they actually represent? Whereas, but Bardella represents a very, very different style of politics to really anybody in mainstream politics, not just in France but across Europe, I would say. I mean, he belongs to this.
So you think this could actually be good for the party?
I think it's possible because I think Bardella is. I mean, he's a hugely talented communicator, very, very sharp, and he is, again, he belongs to a different category of politician to your average Eurocrat. He's an actual, well, he's proud to be a Frenchman. He's prepared to say things that other politicians are not when it comes to immigration and environment and everything else, women's safety. And I don't know, I think that to see him ascend to the presidency of France would be pretty spectacular.
And Marine Le Pen, of course, has baggage from her father, so perhaps this could actually lead the way to even stronger support for the National Rally. What do you think, Matthew? A lot of people saying that this is politically motivated. Others, of course, would sincerely deny that and say that she was caught with this crime, embezzlement of huge amounts of money from the European Union that shouldn't have been spent on her party.
But politically, I have no idea whether it will turn out to the advantage of the hard and far right in France or not. She could become a political martyr, and that may play to the party's advantage. Very quickly to ask you, you said you think this is politically motivated. Were you in court for the trial? Did you see the evidence?
No.
No, OK. Let me just read you this from 2013.
It's an opinion, isn't it?
This is
Matthew, like you
based
have
on
opinions.
based on no evidence.
You have opinions that aren't always based on court documents.
I tried to base my opinions on evidence.
It's based on observe the behaviour of politicians in the European Union for a while.
But they're not the French judicial system, are they? Not the French court.
Yes, but there is
and you
a
haven't seen the evidence.
regime that's composed of the same type of
and you
people
haven't seen the
across
evidence.
Europe.
You haven't seen the evidence. So in 2013, this is what Marie.
Let's not patronise each other.
I'm not patronising anyone.
I should pick you up on that because we may be debating, but we should be. Well,
sorry, could you explain what was patronising about what I just said?
Matthew,
I said Charlie has.
You adopt a very patronising tone sometimes.
I said Charlie hasn't seen the evidence, and he hasn't.
In a very dismissive way. Anyway, please do tell us.
I am dismissive of arguments that aren't based on evidence.
Not be dismissive of the people.
I'm not dismissive of Charlie. I'm dismissive of his arguments.
Have you seen the evidence from the court?
No, I haven't, but I'm not questioning the court's judgment. Let me put this to you. This was Marine Le Pen, in her own words, in 2013. There's only 3 lines. When are we going to learn the lessons and effectively introduce lifelong ineligibility for those who have been convicted of acts committed while in office or during their term of office. That is Marine Le Pen in her own words.
Yeah, she denies the claims, doesn't she, against her? So, I mean, she would continue to stand by those words, presumably.
Well, she's been found guilty of them,
yeah, she has been
as you pointed out. She's got a suspended sentence and she's got tagged. And no one in this studio can tell me that it was with any evidence that it was politically motivated.
Charlie?
Well, I mean, in every liberal country, in France being a liberal country, a liberal Western democracy, we are sold this narrative that institutions like the judiciary and also like the education system, the civil service, etc., are in some way neutral. But the notion of political neutrality when it comes to government bodies like that, or bodies that are involved in politics, is nonsense. It is a smokescreen that's used to obscure the political nature of these institutions. Because, you know, the judiciary, for example, is always going to have a position. It's an unavoidable reality. And across the West, these institutions have been captured by a left-wing ideology that, as I've said already on the show, doesn't have the best interests.
Absolute nonsense.
Do you not think in general that judges can make wrong decisions based on their own biases, ever?
Of course, and I would only criticise them for their decisions if I'd seen the evidence that could show that they have made the wrong decision.
Really, you've never criticised a judge without looking through all of the documents?
I think it's really important that you're incredibly loath to criticise judges, whatever side you are on any particular political debate. The judiciary, I just remind viewers, in our country is independent. It's fundamental to the way our democracy works.
Well, we've had a huge debate.
It's neutral. Of course, it's not sold by the state. It's the way our democracy works. Our judiciary are independent. Unless you can point to a judgment in this country which was wrongly concluded by someone who is intending to act politically, then you shouldn't be undermining one of the best things about our country, which is the independence of our judiciary, which is why people come to this country.
I think you make a strong point.
It's why people come to this country, because they want their cases to be tried or heard under our judicial system, because it has a world-renowned reputation. We should be proud of it. We shouldn't try to sow seed doubts of it.
But I also think it's fair to debate judges' decisions
without any evidence.
Also, in light of all the conversation around the Sentencing Council and their influence on judges' decisions, potentially, I think people are very within their rights to question whether judges always act, you know, why they make the decisions they make, and whether there could be some political bias involved in some of the decisions.
And I would say, Matthew, in the case
Not to say in this case, because I don't know.
You've just claimed that the judiciary, for example, is, you use the word independent. I'm using the word neutral, but I think we're getting at the same idea here.
Do you think it is neutral or not neutral?
No, I don't think it's neutral. But I put it to you that you think that it's neutral because it reflects your opinions.
I think
the types of people
it doesn't reflect my opinions. My opinions are that criminals should go to prison if they've committed serious crimes. I want criminals in prison, no doubt about that, and the law entitles that to happen.
Yes,
our judges are independent, and if they were not independent, I would be calling it out. But there is no evidence to suggest that they are not independent.
But Matthew, you've said already today that you believe that people who post hateful speech or whatever online should go to prison, which is itself a political position. And it's
not a political position. No, I haven't said that. I've said if you incite violence, then you should be held to account under the law, and that is the law of the land. And judges are there to make sure that that law is carried out.
Yes. But I am very aware that people are getting in touch saying that they don't believe the justice system is always neutral politically, and they will point to social media offences in particular, where they believe that too strong sentences have been handed down,
to that then,
as compared to, for example, real violence. We're going to have to move on.
Islamofascism. If someone is advocating Islamic terror on our streets through words on social media, some of the very people who are criticising the sentences handed down for the riots would be saying, look, throw the key away. If you incite violence, whether it's the far right or you're an Islamic terrorist, Islamofascist, or on the far left, or on the centre left, if you incite violence against people in this country, you should be going to prison.
OK, well, strong stuff. You can also check out our website for more analysis and opinion on this story and many more stories. Everything's on there that you want to see and read. You can go to the website gbnews.com as well. And you can also visit gbnews.com/YourSay if you want to join the debate. We'll get to some of your views very shortly indeed. But it is time for the Great British Giveaway, and it is the biggest prize we've ever given away. It is your chance to drive away with a brand new 4-berth motorhome worth over £67,000. And that's not all. You'll also get £5,000 in cash to spend as you will. Want the chance to become our biggest winner to date? Here are the details.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our biggest prize package ever, worth over £72,000. You could spend your summer touring the beautiful British Isles and exploring the great outdoors in this Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. This brand new 2025 model, supplied by our prize partners Marquis Leisure, sleeps 4 people, has its own integrated kitchen and bathroom and a living space that can accommodate up to 5. Plus, we'll also give you a £5,000 cash boost to kit it out and make it the perfect home from home for you and your family. For a chance to win a motorhome and cash, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You're with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. Do try and win that motorhome. It's a fantastic prize. But we've got lots more coming up on today's show. The BBC has been accused of parroting Islamist propaganda after it described Muslim converts as reverts. This is very interesting indeed. We're going to dig into this. Why did they use the term a revert, and what does it say about our state broadcaster? All of that and more. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What's the inspiration? How does it feel?
Well, I mean, this is a very personal story because I was in a relationship that had come to an end and, you know, when you're like, let's just have that meeting, that one last chat to put, you know, all our differences aside. And I was expecting to meet for a chat, and when I opened the front door, his key was on the mat. Like, he'd literally come and done a flit, got his stuff and left.
Done a runner?
Yeah, I didn't want to face me.
So you never got that kind of closure?
I never got the closure. I felt sick. I got like this gut punch. I ran to the fridge. I poured a big glass of wine and cried a lot. And that's kind of how the song came about. I wanted to create a song with my co-writer, Paul Fisser, like that really made people feel how I felt at the time. And I think we did that with this one.
Do you take a lot of inspiration from kind of your own past life experiences then when you're writing?
I do now. I mean, with Atomic Kitten, I spent 20+ years singing somebody else's lyrics.
Right.
So for me to write my own stories and my own life lessons and sing about it, it just hits differently, and it's quite cathartic and
freeing, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a bit like therapy.
I was going to ask about that, with the difference between being in a band for so long and now going on a solo career. So that's really interesting. Obviously, you're singing other people's songs. So do you sort of feel like as a band for hire, or do you know what I mean? You turn up and sort of sing the songs that someone else created for you. Is
not
that
really. I mean,
not the wrong way of putting it? Do you know what I mean? But this is now much more personal.
There's an emotional connection to your own
That's what I mean. Yeah.
lyrics. If I wrote Whole Again, I would probably cry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back to the weekend. This is GB News. I'm Emily Carver in for Dawn Neeson. Lots of you have been getting in touch. What Taylor says, Le Pen guilty of embezzlement in the EU. That must be the joke of the month. Thank God for Brexit. What says the whole structure of the EU is corrupt, he says. There's plenty to choose from. And he goes on. There's been a bit of a row over the difference between inciting hatred and people expressing pure frustration and anger, Catherine says. She's not sure the judiciary and Starmer always understand that difference, perhaps. What else have we got here? So many of getting in touch. Hugh says, Stadland praises the judiciary as part of the communists' efforts to emasculate democracy, in which they do not believe. Not sure. The judiciary is not on record. This is what he says. The judiciary is not on record, as far as I know, as admitting the iron grip of unelected quangos over the judges' sentencing powers. So there you go. Make sense of that.
I can't.
Can you make sense of that?
I think...
Hugh, we're going to need more. We're going to need more from you, Hugh, to really get to grips with the point you're trying to make. Although unelected quangos do have a lot of power in this country. I believe there are currently 300 of them, and they employ about 400,000. They are, yes. Yeah. But I think every time they get rid of one, they announce a new one. So we are getting rid of NHS England at some point. Pardon?
I'm not sure that's quite accurate, that every time they try and get rid of a quango, another one pops up.
Last week, I think it was, or the week before, they'd said that they were getting rid of NHS England. OK, great. That might slimline things. But then they announced a new one about something else. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But perhaps someone at home can get in touch and let me know, because I know I'm right. Anyway, we're going to move on, because the BBC has been accused of parroting Islamist propaganda after describing Muslim converts as reverts in an article about Eid. Now, the term is apparently used by Islamist fundamentalists to back claims that Muslim converts are merely returning to the faith all humans are born into before being corrupted by other religions or atheism. So why was the BBC using such a term to describe people who convert to Islam? Well, joining me now is co-chair of the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester, Mohammed Amin. Thank you very much indeed. Was this a mistake from the BBC, Mohammed?
Good afternoon, Emily.
Good afternoon.
I think it was a mistake by the BBC, because the BBC prides itself on high editorial standards, and it should not be using a term like reverts, which most of the country, frankly, would not understand in this context. It should have used the word converts, which everybody does understand.
But is that the only problem? Because Tom Tugendhat, for example, the former Security Minister, Conservative MP, he said the term is sectarianism and that it refers to ideology, not fact, because it's claiming we're all originally Muslim and that those who convert are rediscovering their faith. So it's not just about understanding, is it? It's also about offence, surely, Mohammed?
No, it's about a fundamental part of Muslim religious belief. From memory, there is a hadith, a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that all babies are born with an inherent knowledge of God, but then it's their parents that bring them up in different religions. Now, you don't have to be, if you're not a Muslim, you don't have to believe that. If you are a Muslim, most Muslims do believe that. But it's not ideology, it's not offensive, it's not controversial. People have religious beliefs. However, the BBC should not be writing things meant to be read by everybody in the country, which can only be understood by people who are familiar with that Muslim religious belief.
OK, Mohammed Amin, thank you very much indeed. You're the chair of the Muslim Jewish Forum of Greater Manchester. Appreciate your time this Sunday afternoon. Let's bring in my panel on this one, because is this just an issue of understanding, that most people who aren't Muslim won't understand what it means, or is it actually offensive?
This story actually cuts really deep, and I think there's a lot to say about it. The first thing to say is I agree with what your guest just said about babies being born with a knowledge of God and a relationship with God, because I'm a Christian myself, and I do believe that we have, as humans, morality etched into our hearts from birth. And
how romantic.
Well, maybe, but we do have a relationship. All of us, whether we, so quote unquote believe in God or not, all of us have a relationship with God. And so the idea that coming to faith is in some way returning to to a state that you once existed in. I do actually think, again, as a Christian, I do think there is truth to that idea. But the use of it in this context, in an Islamic context, I think, speaks to the way in which our institutions in the liberal West are failing to properly deal with the challenge that Islam as a creed brings up, because it is a very, well, it's a religion, right? And I think that secular states and secular organisations do not understand religion. We saw this recently with some various stories of Easter being cancelled in various schools across the country. And that's because secular organisations and states view religion basically as being a costume that people wear. It's kind of a superficial thing that they don't really understand and they view as being kind of silly and kind of quaint and kind of, you know, whatever. But it isn't that. It is a fundamental belief in the nature of morality and truth and beauty and the universe. And so the fact that the BBC has used the language of Islam is not insignificant, because they are treating it as just being what I've just said, a kind of, you know, a superficial thing. Well, they're just.
But it sounded almost as if the BBC was an Islamic institution. But
what they are is a liberal institution that's acting on behalf of inclusion, the doctrine of inclusion, by using this language, not realising that they're actually buying into a creed.
Well, yes, it's not a neutral term.
Is it revert? Using the word fundamental in terms of your beliefs, I worry very much when I hear religious fundamentalism, whether it's Christian or Muslim or Jewish or whatever. I'm not a fan of that, nor do I believe that we were born Christian or that we were born Muslim. I became a Christian out of choice when I was 13. I then lost my faith. So do you therefore find the BBC's use of revert offensive? I'd never heard of the word, so I think it would have certainly been helpful to have had that explained, and they've now changed it, haven't they? They've put it in quotation. The idea that the BBC was indulging in Islamist propaganda is obviously nonsense, but I think it's right that they've explained it.
Who studied... who has a master's degree in Islamic studies from Cambridge University. OK, I'm sure lots of other people do too and have different interpretations of things, but he seems to think that this is quite an extreme version of Islam. They're not all Muslims.
I think
use the term revert,
I think it's the idea
and
that...
therefore, you know, it's the BBC propagating fundamentalist Islam, and it's offensive to people who aren't Muslim.
I don't agree with that, but what I would say is that the idea that we're all born Muslim and that if we then what we would normally call convert to Islam, in fact we're reverting, is obviously absolute nonsense in my view.
So you don't
as it would be with Christianity.
So you don't think that? So you think this article was wrong?
I think, as I've said, that it should have explained the terms, and it now has done that.
No, but it used the term revert.
Without explaining it, yes, I think it was a mistake.
Why should it have
Because people like me who work in the public sphere, hang on, people like me who work in the public sphere and are relatively well educated had never heard of the word, so obviously it should have been explained.
Well, I think that's quite surprising that you hadn't heard of that word, because I certainly have.
Yeah, I had heard this doctrine before, that Muslims, well, a certain number of Muslims believe that we are returning to something when one converts to Islam. But again, I don't agree with that.
But that's the rightful religion, so the idea is that you're being corrupted by other religions.
But do you believe it with Christianity?
Well, this is the thing, right? Because you said that we aren't born Christians or Muslims, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I believe that the Christian theology is an accurate description of the nature of reality and the nature of God, and I believe that God does exist, and therefore I believe that man's natural state is to have a relationship with God. So to an extent, I understand where this comes from, right? But I don't believe, one, that we are born Muslim, and I don't believe that Islamic theology is correct. I don't believe that...
But why would you believe we're born Christian but not born Muslim? I don't understand. I don't believe we're born either.
Well, I mean, OK, so this is an issue of semantics, I think, because I believe as a Christian that the Christian interpretation of reality, morality and God is accurate to reality, right? Therefore, I also believe that we are born with a relationship with God and that all human beings have a relationship with God, and the nature of that God, the personality of that God, if you want, is the one that's described in the Bible.
And some Muslims believe the same for their religion. Yes, my question to you is, if the BBC had used the word revert in the context of someone converting to Christianity and, in their view, reverting to their original state, would you have been happy with that, or would you not?
Well, that's not a term that's really used as far as I know.
If it were a term, I'm asking you for the thought experiment. In other words, are you saying one rule for Christians and one rule for Muslims, or should it be treated equally?
I know that's where you're taking this. And
what's your answer?
I would be happier if it was in a Christian context, because this is a Christian nation.
It's a Christian nation in the sense that we have an established church. We do not have a majority of Christians in this country.
No, but
I am not a Christian.
It was written as if that was the factual term for someone who converts to Islam.
It is for those people, yes, it is for those people, as it would be for Christians.
The article was supposed to be a factual piece about Eid and the celebration of the ending of Ramadan. It was presented as if that word was the word that everyone uses to describe someone who converts to Islam. I think it is fair enough that people have found that offensive and worry about what
I don't find it
says about
offensive.
the
I think
BBC.
they should have explained it.
Well, they did explain it. It was more about just using that word as a factual word, I think, that got people going. But let me know what you think at home, because a spokesman for the BBC has simply said this. This piece has been edited and the headline changed to make it clearer for readers. It's also understood that BBC bosses believe the term revert should have been attributed to the interviewees and explained fully to readers in the original version of the article. Yes, it was just used as the word as if it was fact. But you're with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. We've got plenty more coming up on today's show. We are quickly, though, going to get the headlines for you.
Good afternoon to you. It's just after 2:30. The Prime Minister will accept globalisation has failed as the fallout from President Trump's tariffs continues. Sir Keir will admit globalisation's failed millions of voters and the government must move further and faster to boost growth. He's expected to say when it comes to tariffs, the immediate priority is to keep calm and fight for the best deal possible. His words have largely been mirrored today by Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones.
We've been working on industrial strategy for a number of months now, and there'll be more details coming later in the year. But we've been very clear, and the Prime Minister will be clear this week, that we'll be working hand in glove with businesses to make the UK economy as strong and resilient as possible and to support those businesses in the face of difficult global trade winds as a consequence of tariffs from the United States and retaliatory tariffs from other countries around the world.
Well, 2 Labour MPs who were denied entry to Israel say they've been left astounded by the decision. The MP for Airlie and Woodley, Yuan Yang, and Sheffield Central MP Abtiz Mohammed flew from Luton to Israel yesterday. They've been deported after authorities accused them of plotting to document the activities of security forces and spread anti-Israel hatred. That's from the Israeli Immigration Ministry. Foreign Secretary David Lammy says their treatment is unacceptable. Yang and Mohammed say it's vital parliamentarians are able to witness firsthand the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Rival protests are taking place in Paris and across France after Marine Le Pen was barred from standing for president in 2027. We'll take you live to Paris, where the far right is hoping for a massive public show of support in what they're calling a people's protest. Now, Le Pen last week was found guilty of embezzlement. She described that as a political decision, and she's expected to address crowds around 3 o'clock. Counter-protests by centre and left-wing groups are also underway in the capital. They are rallying in support of the law being enforced and also in support of judges who've been subjected to death threats and now require police protection. We'll try and bring you pictures of both rallies as we go through the afternoon. A teenager's died after getting into difficulty in a lake in southeast London. He has now been named. Officers and paramedics were called to Beckenham Place Park in Lewisham on Friday around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, police say the search was called off after the 15-year-old Isaiah Smith was found on Friday night. Specialist diving teams, ambulance crews and firefighters all took part in the search. There's your headlines. More just after 3 o'clock.
Thank you, Aaron. And remember at home, please do let me know your thoughts on all of the stories we're discussing today. You can do so gbnews.com/your say. Join the conversation. Lots of people in there debating absolutely everything we're talking about, so you want to get involved. We've got lots more coming up on today's show as well. Yes, immigration specialists have demanded an urgent review of skilled worker visas granted by the Home Office. This after GB News found evidence of successful applications failing to meet basic criteria. We'll dig into what's going on there later. I'm Emily Carver. You're with GB News. Stick with us on Britain's News Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to The Weekend with me, Emily Carver. It's now 2:40 and immigration specialists have demanded an urgent review of skilled worker visas granted by the Home Office after GB News found evidence of successful applications failing to meet basic criteria. GB News has seen dozens of these skilled worker visas being granted by the Home Office despite failing to meet legal requirements. This follows the publication of a National Audit Office report last month, which warned that the Home Office did not have the necessary systems in place to stop exploitation of the immigration route. Well, this is very interesting because we're told time and time again that the government has only let in people who have the most valuable skills for this country, and we've had this long list of industries where we need skilled workers, Charlie. But there was another insight the other week about how skilled worker visas were given out to people who worked in kebab shops.
Yeah,
we're kind of stretching the definition of skilled, I think, in this country, aren't we,
I was going to cite that, yes, Stephen Edginson's work on this topic. But
sorry for taking your thunder there.
No, that's quite all right. But no, I do think that, I mean, the notion, first of all, that skilled immigration is helping our economy is obviously nonsensical, if for no other reason than those skilled workers tend, as all migrants do, tend to bring in dependents as well. And migrants who come on, the health and social care visas a few years ago were bringing, 5, 6, 7 dependents, which means that, sure, you're getting one doctor or one nurse, but you're then getting 5, 6, 7 patients, all of whom are also using the NHS, leading to a net burden on the taxpayer. And the same goes for skilled worker migrants, because in 2023, 80% of skilled worker migrants who came through those routes were not, as it were, breaking even when it comes to their contributions to the Treasury. And so that meant that they were, taking more out of the system than they were putting in, thereby being a burden on the taxpayer. So the idea that this type of immigration gives us, what the political class always refer to as growth in this country, I think is just nonsensical.
Well, yes, per capita we are seeming to get poorer or grow very fast.
That doesn't mean it's definitely...
No, correlation, causation are very different things, Matthew. You don't need to interrupt me, I know. But Matthew, I sense that you've hardened a little in your attitude towards immigration. I think where once you may have been an open borders, sort of let everyone in type person.
Never been an open borders. I didn't like free movement.
You may have maybe have got a bit more concerned about it.
Can I say what I think about it?
No, I haven't finished my question, actually,
You keep making assertions about what I think.
No, I'm asking you, and I was doing it in a nice way. I wasn't being nasty. So what do you think now about this? Do you think that perhaps we've been a little too...
lax.
Flexible, or lax, yes, with some of
I wasn't wild about free movement, even though we had reciprocal rights in other countries, because although a lot of people who did come here from EU countries made our country better, filled very important gaps, and married people here or married each other and then had British children, fantastic. The element of it that worried me was where people came briefly, filled a gap, and grateful to them, and nothing against the people themselves, by the way, and then went back. So there was a sort of, to my mind, at too large a scale, transience in our population. And that slightly worries me.
Right, so people don't feel a connection to this country because they're just in and out, just using it for what they can get and then leaving, sort of thing.
I think so. I don't think it is the perfect model of social cohesion. I didn't think it was the perfect model of social cohesion. Nothing against the individual people themselves, and respecting the reality that I had those rights to go to their countries. Since Brexit, if people voted for... Those people who voted for Brexit because they are racist, and lots of people voted for Brexit not because they're racist, because they weren't racist, but those who did, they're in a pickle, aren't they?
Well,
because
can I just make maybe anti-mass immigration?
No, but there are racists. Hello,
of course there are
right.
racists
and I'm saying,
out there. Yes,
you
voted Remain too. I've had messages from Remain voters who've said, ha 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 ha, you come out of the EU and you've lost the European immigrants, and now you've just got ones from Africa and India, ha ha. They were getting pretty racist in the inbox.
I'm sure there are lots of racist Remainers around. My point is that if you voted because you were racist, then you've got a bad deal, because people from Central and Eastern Europe have been replaced by people from further afield. My concern about this particular story is that if it is true and accurate, we cannot have people coming in who shouldn't be coming in. That's completely obvious, and that sort of research is important and helpful, so long as it leads to government action.
Well, I think we all know it's pretty factual now that people are coming in who probably shouldn't be coming in.
But I do one thing on skilled and unskilled, very, very quickly. You accused me of being patronising earlier. I don't like the idea of mocking kebab shop people or anyone else.
It's not about mocking them. It's about saying that it's not a...
No. I really do think...
It's not properly skilled work.
Okay.
In the way that we would assume being a doctor is.
I understand. What I'm saying is I think that actually all the jobs in our society are worthy of respect. I think that's a very, very important point.
Even OnlyFans model. Worthy of respect.
You answer your own question, please.
No, asking it.
I just want to come back on something you said there, Matthew, because I agree that if this is true, if this story is true, then it is, it's a miscarriage of justice. Do you think that the people who have come here wrongly, who have been labelled skilled worker migrants wrongly, do you think they should be deported?
I think people who don't have a legal right to be here, the default position should be you get taken back or sent back to the country you come from. That's the law, isn't it? And the government is trying to do that.
With that attitude, I'd have you at border control, Matthew.
It's difficult. I believe in borders. You told me I was an open borders person.
No, I didn't. I said that. I felt I was
I'm not an open borders person. I understand there are people out there who think that we should have open borders. I am not that. I think we should have borders. I think they need to be enforced. I don't think there are any easy answers about the channel. And I have sympathy for the people who do come here trying to make a better life. But, of course, we have to have a system of immigration that is enforceable.
Absolutely. Well, luckily,
as does Keir Starmer, by the way. As does Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and the Labour government.
Despite borders... Well, Keir Starmer changes his mind on things quite a lot. Despite us having borders, we can travel, still, to warmer climates. Here's the forecast for some of the European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. It's much drier across Spain and Portugal as we head into the new working week. There'll be plenty of sunny spells across much of the Med, but the risk of some showers at times too. Madeira's seeing some showers, but plenty of sunny spells too. Much of the dry weather across Spain and Portugal, though 1 or 2 showers are possible. Showers become more frequent from Italy, stretching across to Greece and Turkey. Temperatures a little on the disappointing side for the time of year, and it remains so for the next few days too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we've got high pressure in charge. We'll see some chilly starts, but plenty of sunshine on the way with much lighter winds too. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is that area of high pressure. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, so chilly still on that eastern coast. But through the rest of today, well, many of us are going to see a fine and settled afternoon, plenty of spring sunshine out there. There will be a bit of cloud across the far southwest of England and across Shetland, but elsewhere dry with plenty of sunshine. Feeling pleasant in that sunshine as well. Temperatures not as high as Saturday, but in the northeast of Scotland and northern England, more in the way of sunshine here, so hopefully feeling a little bit more pleasant. Now, as we go through the rest of this evening, well, not much changes. We hold on to a lot of sunshine as we end the day. Plenty of fine and dry weather around, and temperatures still around 13 or 14 degrees across western Scotland by the time we reach this evening, but still holding on to cloud across Shetland through the rest of this evening. And then not much changes as we go Sunday night into Monday morning. Plenty of clear skies on offer, and that will allow temperatures to quickly fall. We'll see the winds easing as well, so we'll see some mist and fog patches developing as we go overnight, most likely across parts of Northern Ireland, and temperatures quickly falling away. We could see lows down to -3, possibly even -5 in places, especially across northern areas. But this leads to a fine and pleasant start to Monday. Any mist and fog patches soon lifting, and then more in the way of sunshine. We still hold on to some cloud across parts of Shetland, but otherwise lighter winds out there, still feeling pleasant, especially for the time of year. Highs of up to 17 degrees. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Headliners on GB News 11 PM every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
It's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 PM and 5 AM as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Right, welcome back. This is the weekend on GB News 250. And can winning the lottery ruin your marriage? Well, a woman who won £148 million in the lottery has divorced her husband after giving him over £5 million in gifts and spending money over the course of their 7-year marriage. So she gave him pocket money. They didn't quite split the winnings. But anyway, their divorce has very much ended. So I thought, who better to discuss this with than my husband, Patrick Christie's. Oh, Patrick. Oh, look at us. We matched. How sweet. Yeah. Patrick, do you think it would make our marriage better or worse if I won £148 million on the lottery? Because, you know, I have been trying it.
Well, I know Emily wanted to seem this to seem unscripted, but she actually gave me a pre-approved list of things to say before I came on air. So I'm going to work my way through those, everybody. I hit the jackpot the day I met Emily. Every day with Emily feels like I've won the lottery. What's the other one you've written here? Oh, with Emily in my life, I'm already the richest man on earth. Did I do that right? Was that okay?
Nailed it. You could have done it a little more naturally, though, Patrick.
Okay,
sorry. But what would the first thing you'd buy me be if you won the lottery?
OK, so after I've paid for Matthew Stadlen to retire from public life, what I'd do is I'd buy you a bigger engagement ring.
That'd be nice.
I'd put some money aside for the future, maybe buy us a nice little holiday home and all of that stuff. I do things with very well intentioned and responsibly, but in reality, I think I'd probably be found face down somewhere near my yacht in the Bahamas within a week.
Right, OK, well, I better not win the lottery then. Patrick, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy Sunday. And I didn't hear giving money to charity in that list.
Always,
charity.
I'm all about charity.
Yes.
I give money to charity,
yes.
absolutely.
That'd be lovely. Well, there you go. Patrick Christie's my husband. Bye. See you later. See you after the show. Yes, well, would it make your marriage better or worse, Matthew?
Better, and I would immediately go out and buy my wife a Chanel necklace.
Oh, very nice. And Charlie, you're not married, but...
I'm not. I am getting married in October.
Are you?
And I tell you what,
Congratulations.
£148 million would certainly take the burden off in terms of paying for the wedding, because, my goodness, it's extremely expensive. I don't know how much time we've got, but I did want to make a point about
Very
this.
quickly.
I do think that this story does speak to the way that the changing view of marriage in our society. And I promise you I can turn this into a conversation about God, where marriage has become... It's turned from being a covenant made before God that is unbreakable into a kind of contract taken before the state. That's how we think about marriage, and that's why you see divorce at 40% now. And I think it's a really depressing thing. And the fact that this woman, I don't know the details of this relationship that this man and woman were in, but the fact that money is able to break up a marriage, I think, well, it sort of suggests it probably wasn't the greatest marriage to begin with.
Well, hopefully you won't win the lottery and then it won't be an issue, Charlie. Charlie Downs, Matthew Stadlen, thank you very much indeed. You've been with me, Emily Carver, on GB News. Thank you at home for watching, but it is Nana Aquir who's up next, and she's with us. Nana, what's coming up on your show?
Brands are available. I noticed you twinning with your husband as well. You checked out, make sure you wear the right things. Very sensible, Emily. Well done there. But listen, I've got a big show coming up. John Benjamin, he is the CEO for the Free Speech Nation. He will be here in the studio talking about freedom of speech. And I'm asking, do you think that actually Trump's trade tariffs could have a positive effect on freedom of speech? Plus, in my niggle, we'll be talking about bins, rats the size of cats. Will we be seeing the bubonic plague and things like that coming here to the UK? Look, there could be a bin strike coming to you. Stay tuned, you'll hear more.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have high pressure in charge. This will lead to some chilly starts but dry with plenty of sunshine and lighter winds. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, this is the area of high pressure situated out towards the northeast. Still a bit of a squeeze in the ice bar, especially across eastern areas to give a bit of a chillier feel here. But otherwise through